If it ain't live, give it up. Because life is for the living, forgiving. Death is for those expecting life to be resurrecting from the dead. If you think you have heard what the I and I've said, follow this thread. Be you blonde, black hair, or nappy, naughty dread. We still have a question that needs to be answered. Why are we here as man, he, and she? What is our primary focus and purpose? And how does that relate to how fine she look or how handsome he is? What's the realities when we think about the soul-to-soul presence of who we be? Is it not more important to see, sense, hear, and feel a person wholesome and healthy, fueled by whole life energy, maintaining their physical and mental continuity as a being? Or is it that we should be focused on the commercial expression of beauty standards perpetuated by a commercial operation? In the last presentation, what the I asked is that each and every one of us think about that. Reason with the focus and purpose of why we're here. And out of that, there was some beautiful expressions and communications. In fact, I had a father ask if his daughter could please have a presence within our social environment, if she could get the opportunity to experience this holistic living lifestyle. Because what he see out there is so hazardous that he knows for a fact that she will not be able to survive it spiritually, soulfully. That what will happen is that she has been viewed as being built, physically attractive. And not only that, the social, economic, political, and institutions thereof actually uphold those things and dress her for fashion shows, get her doing modeling, and all kinds of things that put her in danger. And that the endangerment vibration is just a part of upholding the commercial ideology. I was listening at this father and I said, man, where in the world does he find this intellectual reasoning? What has happened to make this male feel somehow this sense of compassion for his daughter? When I communicated with him, he said, you know, I've been there and done that. The basic principle is that we have disconnected from the divine social, economic, family, community order that acted as a bond to keep masculine presence, focus within a social infrastructure that perpetuates brotherhood, and feminine in a social infrastructure that perpetuates sisterhood, and that between and among the brother and sisterhood vibration, a council established, and that council's divine, natural, innate duty, obligation, responsibility is to know for a fact that whatever comes out of that sisterhood and whatever comes out of that brotherhood, if it don't synchronize and harmonize, they've been a failure. That's been lost. It's been strategically destabilized and destroyed. When you think about snatching populations from different areas, breaking up the natural innate family order, you can then begin to comprehend the nature of the corruption and disruption, and how difficult it is, and how difficult it's going to be to put the bit pieces and parts back together again. And so, if we look at the focus of this father that Darren and I was just speaking of, somehow you have to have the compassion to know that somewhere within this father, a soul was able to identify a communal order that actually states very clearly the focus of that soul. It's really simple. But it becomes complicated when we begin to think that we're physical beings, born to enjoy the physical life, and that we die, and then something else in the illusions and fantasies of the mind used to pacify the being so that they'll continue to perform within that commercialized way of life. If we begin to see that unless we can develop family communal networks that will allow different males and females, different he's and she's, to be able to focus on something greater than that fantasized physical presence of who one be, that we don't have nowhere to go except a downward spiral into oblivious nothingness. So as the I and I begin to hear responses as to what we need to think about, it should become very clear that we need to think about developing more bonding relationships between man, he, and she. And in order to do that, we must have examples. Therefore, putting examples together right here, right now, becomes the greatest responsibility that any one of us have. And it's very difficult to put these examples together because you're taking bits and pieces and parts from everywhere and you're bringing them and trying to see how to put the puzzle back together, and the piece don't fit. What I'm saying is, man, he and she has been groomed into a state of consciousness that perpetuates insanity. And insanity has become a norm. Some things that we can think and reason about, we know good and well it's insane, but it has become a norm. Some of the things you're not supposed to talk about. We know for a fact that she and she cannot produce the soul pathway for holistic living resurrection. Nature has expressed certain things clear and beyond a shadow of a doubt. But somehow, we've lost our clarity. We know that he and he will not perpetuate the pathway for whole life, soul-to-soul resurrection. We know that even within the scope of things, there has to be a greater connection beyond those kinds of mindsets. What I'm saying is, our focus is to connect within a reality where individuals like this father asking about his daughter can be interconnected and taught and learn how to become soul-to-soul beings. We have been so disconnected with our soul encounter, with our spirituality. We think that getting up and hollering glory, or saying something other, or dancing and tapping the tambourine, and etc., or even singing praise and etc., that's going to be the saving grace. And every single time, the offsprings out of those situations end up thinking the grass is greener on the other side. The offspring want to go and do the things that they see everybody else do within that social order that is the norm. And they end up getting out there, ignorant as they can be about those circumstances, following the trend into a dead end. And we see it over and over and over again. We see this trend happening continuously. And we must be about resurrecting a new generation of consciousness. That's really what we're here for. So when the question is asked, why are we here? The answer is to regenerate a new generation of soul-to-soul consciousness. Anything other than that is about degenerating soul-to-soul consciousness. It's just that simple. So if we begin to take a look at this thing and say, all right, I wholeheartedly and sincerely want to be about myself, then we're saying the whole purpose of that being is to degenerate soul-to-soul consciousness and connect with the deeper relationship of self-consciousness and glorify self-esteem, self-worth, self-value, above all things else. And then when one says self above all things else, we know that that relates to a particular state of consciousness. A state that came out of satanic reasoning. And it's okay. It's okay if that's where the person is at. If the person have decided that that's where he or she be, so be it. But what I'm saying is, we have to be about the wholeness of soulness if we are of that camp. And those who are of that camp, this is the soul call to say, let's find ways and means to cut through the chase and get to each other. I've seen this so many times. My daughter and I was having communications about this today, and it hurts so badly. She said she remembered when she was a lot younger, and what I used to do is get the various families who stated that they had some consciousness together and talk about the fact that we need to set a pathway for these offsprings in the future. She brought this up. I've spoken about this on so many occasions. She brought this up today, and she said, it is now that we see the tragedies and those parents who were about their self, about their own personal glorification, about their own agenda as it related to things and stuff and their physical achievements, actually sold their souls, actually sold their offsprings to that nature that opposed divine order. Because in reality, those beings were saying, well, I want her to be successful. I want her to have a good education, and I want her to be able to achieve this or that within the status quo. And then when taking a look at those offsprings today, it is nothing but a crying shame. It is very sad to see someone who has made an open declaration of consciousness produce offsprings, push the principles of their natural hair, their natural eating, whether it's a religious consciousness, whether it's a social consciousness, whether it's a cultural consciousness, whether it's an economic consciousness. To see that happen to an offspring is one of the worst case scenarios. Because an offspring of that nature will definitely produce conflict, confusion, and chaos, feeling that he or she was let down. Oftentimes, what you see is an offspring feeling that I want to get a chance to experience life. The things that I see my parents chasing, I want some of that too. And the parents don't even know that they're being seen chasing materialistic stuff and things and giving those imprints into that offspring. And as soon as the offspring get a chance, they chase it. They're not equipped, they're not prepared, but they chase it to the dead end. And then when you look at the whole situation, where is a sacred few of the few supposed to emerge out of? Sometimes people are just looking for hope. So if they see a social, economic, political, or religious infrastructure that looks like it gives hope, they want to join it. They're not clear. And then you get distraction going, you get deterioration going, you get the truth of the matter going, that you got beings in there, individuals who are using this as their personal platform to perpetuate some kind of agenda. And that all of the things that are there are in contradiction or a conflict of interest to whole life energy. That takes all the heart and soul out of that offspring. And that offspring then decides to bust hell wide open. We've seen it. And here is the worst case scenario. You can maintain all the principles, morals, and values. Once the offspring starts to have association, assimilation, integrating other kinds of attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs within their consciousness, now all of a sudden they're questioning their own foundation. And it's a downward spiral. And what's going to happen with those offspring? We're in these latter days and times of a whole life reality where Mother Earth has shifted and changed. And one will either rise up in higher peace consciousness, rise up with collective conscious communal order, or deteriorate into the oblivious nothingness of self-deification. And self-deification, appears to be winning so far. Why? Because we can't get the base, root, and foundation squared away in the first place. One has to feel a serious commitment that, oh no, I am not going to follow the status quo. I'm not going to put my offspring back into the same scenario that I was trying to escape from, and now because my hair is more natural, or I'm eating more veggies, or whatever, I'm going to send them back in to the same scenario. It is quite clear that one is perpetuating the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, and it ain't going to happen outside of insanity. That's what's going to happen. I admire that father. I asked him, why are we here in the first place? He said, honestly and sincerely, that question awoke him. He really had never thought of that. He thought that what he's supposed to do after he finished getting his education was to go and get a job and then go and work from can't see to can't see to try to do everything that he could to give his offspring a better life than what he had. And that as a result, he put his focus on making sure they had things that he didn't have or didn't even exist during his time. And he said what he has found out is instead of helping that offspring, it has degenerated or deteriorated their own consciousness about the physical presence of life and moved them further and further away from soul-to-soul relationship. And he said after he's experienced some of the teachings of the I, what he realized is that he's cutting off his own channel. Now that he's become soul conscious, he realized that unless he can get his offspring into a soul conscious reality forward, that what's going to happen is he's going to cut his own pathway out. He said it made more sense than anything he's experienced. He knew that the other thing just didn't make sense. The other stuff, the religious circumstances that was given to him. And that this makes sense. We are responsible for our pathway. We have a challenge, and we must make sure that each and every soul that we have a relationship with has a doorway open for a greater conscious movement, whole life movement into collective conscious communal order. It was so beautiful hearing that kind of expression, but that's once in a lifetime. Because so many have said what I've heard over and over again, well, I just want my child to have a chance to experience life. I didn't have that chance to experience life. I was in a parenting relationship where they were too restrictive and they were strict on me, and I didn't get a chance to do this and that, and I just want my child to have the opportunity to experience life. And then when you talk to that person again, which I've had many occasions to do, they say, wow, will you believe what's happened to my daughter or my son? I can't believe this. I gave them everything. I gave them things that I didn't have the opportunity to have. And now they're stuck in them drugs. They're doing this. They're partying. My daughter is talking about body count. My daughter, can you believe that? And you look and you listen and you say, hey, what you put in is what will come out and come back to you when you least expect it. That's karma. We have to comprehend that we are the determining factor in this soul journey that we're upon. Oh, it doesn't mean that we control it. Absolutely not. We are part and parcel of the collective wholeness of our movement. But we have a divine, natural, and innate duty, obligation, responsibility to forward divine socioeconomic family community order, collective conscious communal relationships, soul-to-soul encounters. We have to first awaken the soul connection within our own being. It's not by osmosis. It's not going to come because one fantasizes it when one has not taken that action and did the work to make that soul-to-soul encounter manifests in thought and reasoning and in action. What you put in is what's going to come out. That's what's going to come back again to you when you least expect it. Yes, you are what you eat mentally. You are what you eat physically. You are what you eat spiritually. And we're not just talking about putting food in your mouth. We're talking about thoughts that go in your head, attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs that you perpetuate, that you put out. It's going to come back to you when you least expect it. And there's nothing worse than seeing those toxic, foul, and wretched states of behavior come back through your offspring. Some folks say, I don't want no offspring. Don't even worry about that being. Oh, no, it's not everyone. That being who says very clearly that I wish I could have offsprings, or I don't have the ability because of certain kind of disruptions or corruptions that occurred physically with I, the responsibility of that being is to perpetuate divine social, economic, family, community order into every offspring and vibration that he or she encounter. So we have a collective, conscious, communal responsibility, duty, and obligation to put every ounce of energy that we can holistically in divine order to resurrecting a divine and sacred few of the few of the few. Because at this particular point in time, we need branches. We need families. We need communal order. We need to manifest relationships that's going to be able to produce wholesome and healthy offsprings. We're talking about getting together mentally, physically, and spiritually to perpetuate a greater sense of who we be as a soul being. And if we can do that, we've taken the first step. If we don't take time and create the proper kind of focus, we cannot expect the proper kind of relationships to manifest. And I say very clearly, the only reason why the time is being taken to put these kinds of presentations out is because I have a lot of offsprings. And those offsprings need to have focused, conscious, communal relationships. Not just something where they go party for the moment, or go out for dinner, or any of these other delusionary Western cultural ideologies of what life is. We have to recognize that life is for the living, for giving. Death is for those expecting life to be resurrecting from the dead. And if you think you have heard what the I and I have said, please do I and you a favor. Follow this thread into divine social, economic, family, community order. Without